Okay, I think we're recording.
Okay, on the idea of decoupling, there had, in social research on organizations, a common observation in the 1950s and these had been gaps between formal structure and what was called informal organization, or the way things are done in practice. That had usually been treated as a kind of problem, explanatory problem. Why would practice differ from the rationalized logic of organization? Where people would rise, and there were a number of reasons that people that suboptimal unexpected problems would come up and informal resolutions would be reached. It was never very clear, but it was always treated as a kind of problem. There were gaps between the way things are supposed to be. We were studying schools, and Jim March and his collaborators were studying universities, which are also schools. And in these cases, the gaps are pretty dramatic in what it's that the form should be requirements of schools should don't happen in classroom practice. There are great gaps there. And these gaps remain, seem very stable. They seem actually unproblematic. And it's obvious that in schools, what goes on in cities, actually their inner workings. So Brian Rowan and I, in thinking about the situation, reversed the question, not why does practice not conform to elaborate fee, but watchers that are there in practice are almost structured, not implemented. Why did they happen? And we were reacting to a very rationalistic period in organization history, a little bit like the present period, in which people had unusual faith in that organization was necessary and made sense. And the tradition tended to assume that the complexity of tasks in modern society require formal organization, or that its function, a blacker mode. The social control requirements in the modern system require formal organization as a matter of power. But in both those cases, the formal organization created then is supposed to happen, either because it's functional or because it's a strategy for control. If it does not happen, those theories are not very adequate, is why there. And our answer in thinking about schooling, and answer in thinking about school as organizations, later was, well, it's there in the immediate sense because the environment contains elaborate prescriptions of what a university should be like, what a school should be like, with elaborate formalizations, rationalizations. And this is true of essentially all organizations that in some fashion devise how they are organized to do things, specify as you organize to do. And that it is frequently more reasonable for people managing an organization to bring it into alignment with the expectations of the environment, without which they run into all kinds of troubles. And in the case of schools, they would be schooled to extreme forms if they're not external requirements. And that might be a good deal more important than managing the details of what happens within the formalized structure. And that indeed it might be advantageous for good-hearted people maintaining a formal organization to make sure they don't know what happens. In schools, this is the dramatic, or universities, the dramatic situation of the self-contained classroom with the detailed absence of inspection of whether the students learn anything or not, or the absence of inspection of what teachers are actually and that's a pretty stable outcome under a lot of conditions. So you have an organization that is properly on the legitimate rationalities of a wide environment. In the case of schooling, the environment is in part global, in the sense that the expectations about what a school or university is are worldwide in character. Ones with inadequately trained teachers, with few very weakly available curriculum. Nevertheless, it is possible for them to posture as schools. And when you now, the idea of what a school should look like physically and socially is developed over the centuries. And when you travel even to the poorest countries in the world, as I recognize in Africa, when you see immediately as it is built, a school looking like a school, becoming itself to you as a school. Sometimes this is a fairly artificial Potemkin-like situation. I have visited schools when they see four-wheel drive, the teacher coming inside and talking to each other, and the children are outside playing, but they understand when a four-wheel drive vehicle is several kilometers away making a huge cloud of dust, it's time to be school. And by the time I get there, they have a school in place. The classroom is clearly organized. It's clear who the teacher is, what subject is being taught. Sometimes it was to be safe last week because then at least some of the children would have gotten the answers right and they could conduct it properly. They all know how to do that. Everywhere I've been, people know how to do school now. This, of course, is an achievement of some centuries, but the practice, of course, might be very highly decoupled. There, it happens. The Peace Corps volunteers often give rather vivid imagery about what happens when nobody's there in a weak context. But it's a school, and everybody can account for the roles and give an account of how it should be. And it gets a good deal of legitimacy, organization. People in the community have great faith also now in the possibilities and what believe that what they have is a school, that their children are participating in a school. It's a very successful operation on a worldwide basis. But it maintains that by maintaining a posture that is quite highly decoupled from the practical realities of life in a rural community. Teachers who are perhaps not there in the land instruction, which is not living. So it creates what might seem to be considerable inconsistency. But the institutionalist answer is that decoupling is a kind of solution more than a problem. From the point of view of other theories, it's a problem, and there are endless reforms put in place to repair it. They never work. But in education, over and over, with national administration, and the idea there should be tests, bureaucracy, apparatus designed to make even more complex forms of decoupling necessary to deal with the practicalities of the actual classroom and the actual teacher. Reform and constant decoupling, that's a rather stable, moving equilibrium in the case of organ forms. This came up in education, and later the idea of education in the 60s and only understanding what schools are special in the 1970s. The schools are special and they're different, and there are out there real organizations run by real men who really do manage it coherently. These kind of macho imagery has come back now in the current period. But gradually people can realize no, schools are not active organizations. Organizations in general are like school activities. That was, and it became clear that no, schools aren't a special and decayed and problematic case. No, organizations are like schools. And that was a major shift in organization thinking, with many efforts in more rationalistic programs that overcome. It's difficult to exact an MBA program that teach buddy facultatives that are legitimate particles on the ass of providence, not rather carriers of new and rational truths. So there's a tension there in the field.